gonna melee, shoot them with Monte Carlo, get our melee back. Go ahead and use it again on these guys. Getting two. And that's the downside to a melee build, but you know what? Look at that super regen. So, we're gonna make a point contact cannon brace build video with Monte Carlo on the Arc Titan. So let's get into it. So you're going to want to run Thruster because of the super short cooldown that it has. That's really all that we're looking for here. I mean, you could go with like Rally Barricade or something else, but I just run Thruster because that's the usual thing that I think people tend to do. Strafe Lift, and then Thunderclap is the melee. That's like the main part of this build. Is we're going to be getting Thunderclaps back a ton and jolting everything and just getting our melee back all the time. I run Pulse Grenade because of Touch of Thunder. Using Touch of Thunder makes your Pulse Grenade create Ionic Traces, which gives us back some melee energy. Or well, just ability energy in general. Your Storm Grenade is nice because it roams. So if you want to get some more damage off, like with your armor mods and stuff, then that might work. Your Lightning Grenade jolts targets, which could also work. But I think Pulse Grenade is just a reliable source of good damage and energy generation. So Pulse Grenade mixed with Touch of Thunder will give us some ability energy back. Knockout is really the only other option here because we don't need Juggernaut for an overshield. Survivability isn't usually a big deal unless, I mean, you're using a melee build in super high-end content, and that's just, like, it's just hard in general. So, Knockout is our option. Critically wounding a target or breaking their shield infuses your melee with arc energy and increases your melee range and damage for a short time. So, we get even more melee range and better melee damage, which feeds into our Thunderclap and is going to allow us to just kill even more yellow bars and everything else. And defeating targets with our melee starts health regeneration and makes us amplified. So we're going to be killing something with a melee, we get health regen, we get amplified, we make everything jolted, we're going to be spawning a bunch of Ionic Traces and getting a ton of Orbs of Power and getting our melee back all the time. So to back up our melee build and our aspects, we're going to run Spark of Resistance because it makes us more resistant to damage while we're surrounded. We're always going to be surrounded since it's a melee based build, so that's a good, really just good, easy fragment to run. And it gives us plus 10 strength for getting our melee back a little bit faster. And then Spark of Ions. Defeating a jolted target creates an Ionic Trace. I believe we're going to be jolting everything with our melee and the lightning strikes that come down from it. And a couple of the mods in the seasonal artifact might also help with this. So it's just going to give us even more ability energy back whenever we're jolting things. And then Spark of Recharge. While critically wounded, your melee and grenade energy regenerates more quickly. So this is one that you could replace with other fragments if you wanted to. It's not like a necessary one, but in a melee based build, you might be critically wounded more often than not. But also we've got the health regeneration coming from Knockout and some other things. So, this just gives us a little bit more ability energy at times, but it's not necessary to run. Spark of Amplitude. Rapidly defeating targets while you're amplified creates an orb. You're pretty much always going to be amplified, especially with the mods in the artifact this season, so it's just even more orbs to generate some more super energy for us. Alright, let's move on to, I guess, the armor and how it works with the build. So, we're going to run as much resilience as we can get. Don't worry about my other stats. It's just a build video. I kind of just put it together. Ideally, you want 100 resilience. I know it's not as good in the damage reduction anymore as it used to be, but we want to get our dodge back or our thruster back as fast as we can and that's the way to do it on Titan. So high resilience will get you your thruster back really fast. So because thruster has such a low cooldown, since we're running 100 resilience, we're going to run outreach on our mark, which reduces our melee cooldown when we use that thruster ability, or our class ability. So on our helmet, we're going to run hands-on, gain bonus super energy on melee kills, which is what we're going to be doing all the time with this build. So that's going to give us a bunch of super energy. And then Dynamo reduces super cooldown when using your class ability near targets, which is our thruster. So we're going to be getting bonus super energy from our melee kills and from our thruster. So what's going to happen is we charge up our melee, we use it, we get a bunch of super energy and generate melee energy from that. And then we get next to our other group of enemies and we use thruster, which gives us melee energy and a bunch of super energy again. And then we use our melee again and we just keep repeating that. So it's melee thruster, melee thruster. And then I'm also running Kinetic Siphon because we have Monte Carlo on. Point contact cannon brace. This is the whole, this is the exotic for the build. Defeating targets with your Thunderclap melee restores melee energy. So we're getting more melee energy back with that. Targets near you when you use your Thunderclap suffer lightning strikes and become jolted. So there's our jolt that we can generate orbs from while we're amplified. And then being amplified increases the damage of the lightning strikes. So we're becoming amplified from our arc kills and stuff, and then everything's jolted, so we're generating orbs from that, we're generating orbs from our melee kills, we are getting a bunch of super energy, everything's getting lightning strikes applied to it. We're going to run a melee kickstart mod so that when we have our armor charges and we use our melee, it'll replenish that melee a lot for us, so we don't have to wait to get our melee back. And then Focusing Strike grants class ability energy when you cause damage with a melee. This synergizes with Outreach on our legs, or on our class item, because our melee cooldown is going to be reduced with our thruster, and then our thruster cooldown is going to be reduced with our melee, to just keep it going back and forth. And then I have Heavy Handed on, because we'll make Orbs of Power on our melee kills. So we're making Orbs of Power from our melee kills, and we're making Orbs of Power when we're amplified and killing things. So that's two sources of orbs. And then we're also getting super energy from our thruster and our melee kills. So we're generating a ton of orbs, and we're getting a bunch of super energy just from meleeing and dodging. And then our chest plate, I run 2 charged up, and that seems to be a pretty common theme with a lot of the builds that I'm trying to come up with, because it just gives you the ability to have a bunch of armor charge for whatever ability you're trying to use, and the kickstart mod to get that ability energy back. On our boots, we're going to run Invigoration, reduces melee cooldown each time you pick up an orb, and remember we have 2 sources of orb generation, so we're going to be making a lot of orbs, and then we'll get our melee back even faster. And then Better Already, your health begins to regenerate. You could take this off to benefit from the increased ability regen when you're wounded, but I don't know, I just have it on right now. So, and then Stacks on Stacks, picking up an orb grants you an additional stack of armor charge. Again, you can replace this with other things. There's things in these builds that you can, tailor to make your own, but this is what I like to run to get those armor charges back faster, to work with Kickstart and get as much melee energy as we can refunded. And then, like I said, on our mark, or on our class item, we're going to run 2 outreach mods to get that melee energy back. And then I like to run Powerful Attraction, so that when I dodge, I'll hopefully pick up orbs, because it automatically collects orbs whenever you use your class ability. So whenever I use that dodge or that thruster, then I get all the orbs around me, and I don't have to worry about picking them up, and then I get that armor charge to get melee kickstart back going. So that's pretty much it for the whole build. Monte Carlo helps because dealing damage with this weapon reduces your melee cooldown and grants a chance to fully charge your melee ability with each kill. So if I'm just, really close to getting my melee back, then I'll just damage an enemy a little bit and I'll have it. Or if I'm really low on melee energy and I just kill a red bar, I have a chance of immediately getting my whole melee back to then go chunk like a yellow bar or something like that. And then you also get what's basically, I think, Swashbuckler on here too. So your Monte Carlo will always pretty much be empowered in some way because you're getting these melee kills and Swashbuckler and all the stacks back. So we'll just run through a little example of how this build works. I'm in a Lost Sector right now. This works in other content, but because it's a melee based build, it is kind of hard to survive in higher end content. So it's just a cycle of melee and then thruster, as I said before. So we're gonna melee, get a bunch of melee energy back, and then we'll have it back for this next group of enemies. Melee again, ton of energy back, thruster because we didn't get it all back. Melee again, basically have it back. And all this whole time, we're generating tons of super energy off of our melee. Thruster again. Or you could thruster when you get next to the enemies for more super regen. Generating a bunch of orbs at the same time. Don't quite have our melee back, so we can throw our nade. Use a little bit of Monte Carlo. Get it back. See, and our melee is killing enemies like meters and meters away. Got our super back already. Go ahead and use that. Use our thruster. Melee again. There's those ionic traces. Use some Monte Carlo to get our melee back. More orbs. And then we're always amplified too. Melee, we already have it back. Melee. Boss is dead. We already almost have, we're over halfway to on our super. So it's just infinite melees and tons of super regen. It's so much fun because of all the lightning strikes and everything too. So give this build a try, have fun with it, any Titan mains out there, and I will hopefully see you in another build video or something similar soon. Have a good one.